today I'm joined by Kathleen Harris, who's London Managing Partner at Arnold Porter. For those who don't know, Kathleen is a lead of the firm's anti-corruption practice, head of the economic crime and investigations practice in London, and has also been recognised as one of Europe's most influential lawyers. Kathleen is also a former senior civil servant and a senior advisor at the Attorney General's office. So Kathleen, thank you very much for joining. Really excited about our chat.
Excellent, lovely to meet you, Amy.
Great. So first things I wanted just to cover a bit is more about sort of your role as managing partner. So you've been managing partner coming into an interesting time straight after COVID.
Yeah, amazing. Lots of change.
Previously being sort of, again, you were leading a team here and obviously taking on those extra responsibilities. Why did you want to become office managing partner?
I think when I think about the role of being a managing partner, I actually look at it as something where you get to work more closely with a variety of people. When you're in your practice area, you're very focused on what your practice is, how your practice is developing. And I think a hallmark of my career has always been learning from others. So I like working with people, I like managing people. I cast my mind back and I sort of think even my Saturday job, I sort of ended up as a supervisor. And I think every role I've ever had, you end up in a sort of supervisory position. And in part because I like to get the best out of people.
And how, obviously you're still a leader of the team because you're still sort of you're head of the economic crime investigations practice. Is the skill set different to being because the leader of the team?
Yeah, I think the focus is different in the sense that the similarities, they overlap. But I think if you lead a practice group, you're very focused on how your practice group is developing, the trends that just affect your practice group, obviously the clients in your practice group. Whereas if you lead an office, you're sort of looking across the firm and you're thinking more laterally about growth. You're thinking about that interplay between different practice areas. You're thinking about the geopolitical situation, how that's affecting different practices. But then you're also thinking not just about the practice of law. You're focused on the well-being of your colleagues, the development of your office. And personally to me, I think every good leader should be thinking about succession. So you get to kind of shape hopefully a bit of the future and plan for the future of not just your law firm, but contribute to wider debates. So I think it's a much wider role, focused still on people and developing in client service, but thinking about it in a lateral way.
How did you learn how, it's obviously with your Saturday job and other things, it obviously comes naturally to you to supervise and to deal with people, but how did you actually learn those skills? Do you think it's just innate to be the managing partner sort of skills?
I think that I always see the good in people. I think there's a part that's innate in how you practice, but I think also throughout your career you meet different role models, and I always think role models is a strange phrase because you can learn from everybody, good or bad. Yeah. And I think in my formative years, I had fantastic people and I had people whose style I wouldn't want to emanate. But from that, I learned about the person that I wanted to be, the type of lawyer that I wanted to be, the type of manager that I wanted to be, and also about being in an environment that allows you to be those things. So I think at Arnold Porter, I sort of found my home by chance. And I think I've been able to develop. I don't ever think you're the complete article. I know a lot's written about you always learning, but I think you are. You're always learning, you're always developing. And when you're in leadership roles, you get to do that.
So you didn't have a specific mentor?
I didn't. I'm old enough now, so I've had a series of people that are mentors, I'd say formal and informal. But I think the consistent message I think that I always got is be the very best version of you. And excellence in any role comes first. You have to have the merit to do what you're doing. It's not a sort of like, it's like sometimes if people sort of say to me, you know, how did you get that case, or how did you get, I often think, well, what did you think I did? Go to the supermarket and grab it off the shelf. You have to have the ability to do it. But then outside of that, if you're lucky enough, you get to be creative about how you deliver. And that's what I enjoy about the environment I'm in. And that's what I learn from my mentors. I often think that you never get the best from anybody by putting them under a huge amount of pressure to perform, because you just make them panic, you create anxieties. But if you gently create the environment where they can thrive, that's actually more important. So I would say, yes, lots of mentors, lots of people I've had the pleasure and privilege of working with that helped to shape me. And I would say, you know, before, there's a lot, I know we're going to come on to this, but there's a lot about diversity. And I'm not a words person. I'm more of a kind of, whatever you call it, just creating an environment where good people can thrive is really important, and bad behaviours can be called out and equally dealt with in the right way helps development overall.
Yeah. And obviously Arnold Porter is a global firm, and you've got bigger offices outside London. How does your role fit in with the other managing partners?
Yes, so I work really closely with the overall leadership team. We have like Michael and Ellen, who are our co-chairs, and then across the firm, other practice group heads and other managing partners. And what you do is we have policy meetings together, we have retreats together, we talk about what's happening in our local markets, we talk about the strategic goals for the firm, we talk about leadership and development. So I think it's a role where I don't feel isolated at all. And I've got great people in the firm. If I've got an issue and I need to deal with a problem, I might speak to sort of Arthur in New York, who's completely different to me, but is a tough lawyer and give me really good advice. I might speak to Niels, my colleague in Brussels. I might phone Ellen and say, I've got this issue. I'll speak to Mike. There's lots of, I think one of the things actually, like I said, I found my natural home here. We're really different personalities, like different interests and things. But actually, if you're dealing with something and need to come together, we're really good at that.
And actually, maybe the benefit of being a global firm is actually you have a support structure within the management too.
Yeah, absolutely. You sort of, no one's a complete article at all. And I think being able to talk about issues that you see, be able to learn from other people, never shut yourself down from learning. And also, I think being able to just have the structures and systems around you. A lot of people talk about strategy and delivery, but I often think a lot of people don't really appreciate what that really means. And then also, I think things can move on quickly, and being able to be responsive. I mean, you mentioned sort of, you know, COVID. I mean, I think over the last 10 years, we've had fundamental changes. And I think any leader in any role, and it doesn't have to be a very senior leader, has this responsibility of making sure that you're taking your people with you, and helping people manage through change. You don't do it alone.
Yes. Well, over 5 years, you've probably had to deal with a number of things. So you've sort of touched on your management style being more carrot than stick.
Yeah.
How else would you just describe it?
I would say I'm a really open leader. I like to be approachable. I like people being able to come to talk to me about problems and issues that they might have. I love fostering good ideas, listening to other people. I don't believe that I'm the custodian of everything that's good or any development. So I think my style is very much open. I would say I'm a thought leader, 100% I'm a thought leader, and I care about delivery. And I'm not sort of, I hope I don't come across as that, because I'm certainly not robotic at all. I will think about everything. I will think about the impact of how I do things. I'm not an impulsive leader. But that being said, I love change and challenge.
And what do you think the hardest thing about your role is?
I think the hardest thing, well, right at the beginning, I would say the hardest thing about the role was trying to be everything to everyone. And then realising that you had to sort of prioritise. And I think it's like really tough. You know, recently we're dealing with the bereavement of a colleague, someone who I admired greatly. And I think the tough part of leadership is helping people who perhaps don't have the same resilience levels as yourself to come through and to develop.
Because your role is, as you say, bringing everybody together, isn't it? Guiding everybody.
Yeah.
But also having to manage, I guess, lots of different personalities.
You also have to say no. The easiest leadership style, I mean, you see it today. I'm not political, by the way, but I will reference when you see politicians, and the easiest thing to do is say yes, 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 yes. But it means you fail on delivery. You can't say yes to everything. And I think one of the tough parts of being a leader is really hoping that you're getting it right. And that we talked about working with your colleagues, being able to trust other people's judgment and to provide support at the right levels, and recognising I think as human beings we're all different, and different people need a different reaction at different times. And you may sometimes get that hopelessly wrong, but I always think that I will always come from a place that's well intended. So if I have got it wrong, or I do get it wrong, which I'm sure I will, it won't be out of sort of malafide days or sort of bad faith. It'll be out of the fact that simply I read it wrong. I own my mistakes. But I think the tough part of leadership is just the challenges. And I think the other thing about any workplace, not just a law firm, is people will come in with all sorts of issues. They'll have caring commitments, they'll have maybe illness themselves, they may have finance problems, it could be all sorts of things. And I think your role is sort of being that trusted friend, being that support and gently steering things. But I think the other part that I think is tough about leadership is not everybody sees what you do. And I think that's right. You shouldn't be sort of screaming from the rooftops, I've done this, this and this. And I always say that unless there's something wrong with you, it's easier to praise other people than it is to talk about yourself. So I think getting the gentle guide right is tough.
And sometimes being a bit of the, well, unsung hero, and not, because people aren't going to understand what you do all the time.
Oh,
but
no,
you'll know you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I think if you're coming at it with the right motivation, in the end you may get to the right place, hopefully. But I think making sure that you understand the task in hand, that you're clear, and sometimes you can't be as clear as you like because there's other competing strategic issues that may affect your delivery. And sometimes not being able to go into the full detail of all of those things can be tough.
And what do you enjoy the most about being a managing partner?
I think for me, the thing I enjoy the most is people. And I actually think I am so privileged to be able to be the custodian in a tiny little way of the development of legal practice, and to hopefully be sort of putting the ladder down so as many people can get up there and enjoy what I've enjoyed. And hopefully, if I live long enough, getting to look back and think I played a tiny little contribution in that, that's really important to me. I always sort of look back when you were interviewing for roles and things, and trying to make that connection with an interview panel. I always try to be the person that's willing that person on to sort of say the right thing and get the role, particularly when I can see that enthusiasm and that ability sitting there. So yeah, I think it's great to influence those things, open up the access to justice. We do a lot of pro bono work as a firm. I think keeping the doors open to all communities. We are a law firm, we're here to make money, we are a business like everybody else. But I think getting to influence the way in which you do that is important.
And talking of sort of, bringing other people through. I'm going to move on slightly onto the sort of diversity and access and representation sort of points, because first of all, I just wanted to say congratulations. You've won the Law Firm Leader of the Year at the Women and Diversity Law Awards very recently, a couple of weeks ago,
yes,
I think,
yeah.
Which is fantastic, and another good sort of, again, I know you've got lots of awards to your name, and the most recent. You've obviously been, talked very openly about diversity in the legal profession. I wanted to sort of take us back a couple of steps, because you obviously came not from private practice, you came into private practice. At the point that you came in, were you aware of diversity within private practice law firms, particularly in the city, I would say?
Ignorance is bliss. Do you know, I think if I sort of roll that and peel that back, so I'm a barrister by training, and I'd wanted to be a barrister since I was 14 years old. And I think for me, I grew up in the 70s, and I never fitted in, so I never cared about fitting in. It just wasn't a thing. And I think the early mentors I met in my life were very much focused on merit. And I'm focused on merit. I like people to be good at what they do. And for me, I came into it and I thought, well, look, I'm just going to give this a really good go. And so I never focused on what people perceived I didn't have, but tried to help them focus on what I did have. And so coming into private practice, I obviously had read a lot. So you had read about different challenges, corporate cultures, behaviours, but I have never wanted to be in the room unless I am as good as or better than the people around the table. That's who I am. And I will work phenomenally hard till the day I stop working to always be present, thoughtful. So it's a long way of answering it. I think, yes, I was aware from a sort of an academic perspective. And I think when you come into the environments, I just didn't focus on, did I fit in? Am I right for the role? I just focused on doing the role to the very best of my ability. And listen, if that's not good enough or it stops being good enough, that's okay. I'm okay with that.
And did you ever think you had to sort of fit yourself slightly?
You're probably getting a little bit of my personality. Yeah. No, I didn't. I certainly felt the parts where you couldn't kind of say, well, actually, I'd rather be going to a concert at Wembley Stadium rather than I'd go to X or something. But I never felt that my background was an impediment to me. And actually, I think I have been so, humbled by the amount of people that reach out to me and say that they find me an inspiration, like truly, truly humbled by that. Because I have never sort of focused on, if you like, what I think people's negativities, people's perceptions. Look, sometimes you're going to change them, sometimes you're not. But why would you put your energy into something you can't really change? And why wouldn't you just focus on the positive attributes you can take and put your energy there? So often we read about programs and development when actually what it's really about is just that encouragement and helping people have the self-belief, not arrogance, but the self-belief in achieving things. But the truth is that you're always aware of that you may be treated differently, but I don't automatically always think because it's my colour or because it's my gender. I actually sometimes think, listen, it's just the way other people are.
Yes. I suppose the thing that has changed, I think, is the visibility of diversity within the legal profession. Do you feel it's moved on and we have, conversations progressed and there has been any sort of, meaningful advances in terms of making the profession more diverse?
I think the statistics will say, depending on what period you take them from, that it has moved on, but that progress has been slow. And so I think the first thing, a short answer is saying, yes, I do believe it has moved on. Do I think it can move on more? Yes, I think I'd love to see it move on without the labels, without the feeling that we can, you have to fit into a certain mould or to progress. I'd rather it just be something that happens. It's not a conversation I'm having anymore.
Yes.
And I think I probably will not see that in my lifetime, but I think that we are hopefully on that road to achieve that.
The only thing I wanted to cover slightly was, obviously the US administration's stance on DEI has meant lots of particularly US firms have rowed back and chosen to sort of hide their diversity policies and really not be a sort of, where before they might have been outwardly supporting them. Arnold Porter hasn't chosen to do that. And you obviously co-lead the firm's diversity and inclusivity committee. How have you found taking that stance? Was that important to you?
I think one of the founding principles of our firm is inclusivity. And one of the reasons why I'm here, it's one of the reasons why I joined the firm, is because there is a focus on you being able to be the very best person that you are. So irrespective of the executive orders, they are our founding principles.
Yeah.
So in reality, our committee is just a vehicle to keep those principles alive and to keep us honest, frankly. So for us to change or to walk away from that would actually be a move away from the founding principles and culture of our firm. I think that other firms that have made changes, obviously they felt the need to do that, to respond to the current geopolitical situation. But the reality is, I hope even in the moving away from whatever stated policy, however it's articulated, they will always be environments where the very best will thrive and that people, irrespective of their differences, will be able to thrive. I mean, I said earlier, I'm not a labels person. I've never been a labels person. I learnt that sort of quite early on in my career as a senior civil servant. I had the privilege of working with Gus O'Donnell many, many, many years ago. And I remember talking to him about diversity, and diversity covers so many things, diversity of thought, opinion. And I sort of hope that the changes that we see are eventually turned into that broader conversation that frankly needed to happen. Any policy that you have, and it doesn't matter, it could be over anything, is not something that should just live in a sort of book on a shelf or somewhere hidden on your computer. It should be lived to values, and that's the change that I want to see.
It's the words and actions.
Absolutely.
You mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And can you give us some sort of examples of the Diversity and Inclusivity Committee? What does it do, and what are the sort of actions that the committee takes?
So we do lots of things. So we organise lots of events, different speakers, different activities. We monitor the progression and the cohort of all junior lawyers through the firm. We make sure that we've got good representation across committees, and we really work with, and we always have done, sort of work with our overall training and HR around development. And then we make sure that when you have changes, so when you have changes around the executive orders, that we're actually compliant with the law. I mean, the first thing is you have to comply with the law, so we make sure we're compliant with the law, but we're also making sure that our colleagues are supported and that we hold true on the cultures and values of Arnold and Porter.
I think we've sort of slightly covered it, but in terms of the ideal is actually we don't need to be talking about diversity because there's diversity throughout. I suppose when you look at the sort of hard facts and figures, law is still a is still nowhere near where it should be in terms of being truly diverse. I think we're definitely getting there at the sort of junior levels, but the senior levels, are you aware of that? And obviously that impacts on you when you, I'm going to say, when people get made up, and you know, what does it look like from a partnership level?
Yeah, what I would say is I think it's very, very true that there is a drop-off rate. If you look at the number of people that are entering law school and then the ones that are practicing years later, and I think it's caused by fundamentally lots of factors in society. Even though you have, you know, paternity pay rights, just look at the number of men that are taking those vis-a-vis women. I think that there needs to be that development and shift in attitudes to then mirror the numbers you have retained. I also think that the work in relation to people being able to step away and feeling able like they can step away and it not having an impact on their careers, like having the structures in place and the right sort of policies, and then encouraging the right behaviours, you know, that's sort of not the kind of, oh, well, they're going to be off on caregiving leave, so I'm not going to give them the most interesting case. And we all know that if you have the most interesting case, that's how you're going to sort of learn and develop in your career, by having access to good work. Absolutely. Yes. Have the most visibility, meet more clients, meet more of your colleagues across the firm. So I don't think it's as like with most problems in life, there isn't that one switch that's going to make it different. But I think that everybody who is in an organisation has a role, whether you're a leader or not, in trying to ensure that those policies that you have and those treatments of other individuals, your colleagues, whether you're managing them, whether you're contemporaries, hold good on the values of the organisation which you're in.
And what do you think makes the biggest difference to improving diversity? Do you think it's a policy or specific actions, or?
I think there's a couple of things. I mean, definitely having and educating everybody on what our expectations are and what our policies are. Having the ability to call out behaviours that are not befitting of an office holder and making sure that there's good accountability over them. And I think also just being able to recruit from the widest cohort humanly possible, and opening your doors and letting people feel inspired by what you do so that they feel comfortable to come. And also comfortable to, you know, explain when they have difficulties and challenges that might take them away from their commitment to what they're doing.
And I think it's, as you're saying, it's from a very junior level, isn't it? Actually getting the best cohorts and the widest cohorts. Doesn't matter whether you've been to state school or private school or come from a different background. And you're, you know, a great example of somebody who's come from very different, you know, typical, you know, or traditional background.
It's a good thing I didn't recognise it was very traditional.
Ignorance is bliss, as you said.
Absolutely. I think that you, I think I always say to aspiring practitioners, focus on being the very best version of you. Don't focus on the competition around you. You know, if I, you know, in those younger years where people say, well, if you do that, you know, you won't be able to do this or whatever. If there's something you really want in life, just knuckle down. Not much comes to you without hard work. And a lot of leaders will talk about the hard work. That's one component of it. Another component of it is the sort of dedication. Another component is having the empathy and understanding. I always think in my practice area, you know, I deal with people, not lots of documents, I do lots of documents, but I deal with people. So having the ability to understand people and their pressures, genuinely caring about what you're doing, having a genuine passion about what you're doing, and making sure the talent matches it. I sort of think about it in terms of, you know, I love music, but can I sing? I could empty a room. So the idea that I wanted to, you know, to go off and be a singer and perform just was never going to happen. So it's that realistic expectations. And I think at the moment there's a bit of a mismatch, I suppose, between people that want to come into law, want all the things they think that go with it, but then the dedication, the hard work, that part's a little bit lost. And I think when you work, it's like a relationship and you have to give to get out of it.
Yes.
So it's not just, that's why it's not just about the sort of policies. I think it's the willingness to understand, the willingness to implement, and the willingness to work and to develop.
So what would your advice be for somebody who wants to come into the profession? Be open, be willing.
Yeah, my advice would be, listen, one day this chair will be empty and I won't be here and you're going to have to come in and take it. So never be put off by the hurdles, get over them, seek out good guidance where you can, but have a genuine passion in what you want to do. And most importantly, enjoy it. You know, there's, in any environment you work in, there's nothing worse than being around people that don't enjoy what they do. Like, it's not productive. And it's okay to be able to say, look, this isn't for me, and to look for another role, and having that confidence. And then equally, if you do come, really, you know, I know everyone says this, but it is about hard work, it is about commitment, it is about dedication. And most of all, it's about bringing everybody else along with you. Don't alienate other people. Don't forget it's a small world. You might meet them somewhere else. And, you know, do your best, I think, to apply yourself and then to succeed. Success is a funny word because I think it can mean different things to different people. And then also the reality is sometimes the reality of practice suits some people and it really doesn't suit others.
And there isn't a one-size-fits-all, is there? I always think in practice. I obviously meet many people, and actually there's a whole variety of different types of lawyers. And often you don't need everybody as being the out-and-out rainmakers. You need actually a whole variety of sort of skills to weave together to actually make a nice culture and a successful firm.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's the reality that no one person will have it all. You know, you mentioned awards at the beginning. You don't win those awards by yourself. You win them with the unsung heroes in the background. You win them with the support you have, and you win them with having the benefit of working and learning from others. And I think in your younger years, sometimes, you know, if you think about what would you say to your younger self, and I just kind of think, look, there's something you really want, go for it, for sure. Make sure the talent matches the aspiration, and make sure that you are receptive to actually learn. And something a lot of people say, but it's true, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Thank you very much. It's been great to speak to you.